Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. This week I'm working on a really cool folk art color shifting swipe with a black oxide base by Amsterdam, and let's take a quick look. Okay, now leading into my pour with my oxide black by Amsterdam. This is my favorite black color to use as my base coat for all of my swipes I tend to do. So if you have a preference of color of paints you use for a base, what are they? Are they oxide? Are they a matte black? Let me know. And also Merry Christmas to those who celebrate in these past few days. It is now December the 29th as I record this video, so coming up in a few days is New Year's Eve. So happy New Year's to all of you out there, and of course Merry Christmas again to those who celebrate, and let's keep going. Okay, I'm getting into my paint here. So I realized off the hop that I had a bit too much black oxide as my base. I needed to really just kind of stretch out the canvas to make sure all of the corners were covered. But in a sec here, I'm going to wind up actually dumping off some of the paint off the top because there was way too much paint here. So I needed to stretch it out and decided to pour some oxide off the sides, which was fine by me, as I had plenty of paint of color to lay down on top of this with for my swipes. And as a quick note, I don't like doing this because I'm often concerned that as I get into the pour itself, I'm going to be short on black paint to stretch my colors with, so keep that in mind. If you have a bit too much paint, maybe go with it, but be careful with how much you do decide to dump off the sides. And also, do not forget to pop your bubbles. Use a heat gun or a torch or whatever works best for you, but pop all those small bubbles. Now here's my titanium white cell activator, which I use for my swipes quite often. Now I decide to dump my paint into a lid of an old yogurt container. That just helps for cupping and as a tray, for example. So that's my little secret. And I wipe it out and give it a good rinse once I'm done to use once again later on. Now going into my colors, I used some some folk art Color Shift Acrylic, which is beautiful. I used the purple flash, violet flash, and aqua flash for these three colors, which turned out just gorgeous. And now if you haven't had a chance to use folk art's color shifts before, they are a really cool metallic. It's almost as though they are two colors depending on the side of the canvas you're standing on. They change color depending on sunlight. So if you're on the left-hand side in the daylight or the right-hand side, it could be purple or it could be silver. It could be blue or it could be green. It could be black or it could be gold. So these colors, depending on what you have, do change color side to side, which I find is a very cool feature of them all, and it does give a different vantage point of a pour or a painting from side to side, which is really cool. And as for these swipes, I was really happy with how these turned out. Lots of cells and lacing came out of that black, but also the color combination worked really well. If you're new to pouring or just want a refresh, you find that if you layer your colors lightest to darkest, and for me anyway, my darkest colors always last, going through my lighter colors in the end. So I was quite happy with how well these colors blended together in the black, and really happy overall. Now at this point, I'm really just trying to make sure and be consistent with my swipes, making sure I get the same blend of color throughout, knowing that on occasion I've pressed too hard on my palette knife or not hard enough and not ruined things, but not quite as consistent across the board. Now with this last swipe, I was a little bit put off in the end. You'll see here in a second. I decided to cross my colors right there, which in hindsight was, I think, a bit of a miss for me, but anyway, we'll learn as we go, so I will take it as is and we will carry on. I had a bit more space on the other side of my black than I would have liked, with no color, so I wanted to layer a smaller bead of the 3 colors on this black end and swipe on through. And then again on this side, just going lightest to darkest for my swipe pattern in terms of colors I use. So again, my darkest color is typically the color I swipe through first, going into my lightest color in the end. So for me, that works the best I found for the color blends we use. So again, it's all trial and error. So I found that lightest to darkest will typically get buried into a darker color. So darker to lightest works best for me. That's my experience. But if you have had any other experiences that I don't have, let me know what they are and what you've done to show off those results. I'm very curious. Now on this side, I had a little less room to navigate the canvas with, so I wanted to again just maintain the consistency of my palette knife going from front to back on this this color palette. It was really pretty coming out the other side with the lacing and the cells, which again were very, in the first batch there, really sticking out as a focal point in the pour. I was incredibly happy with how these worked out. And I found that in testing my cell activator the past month and a half or 2 months, I've come up with a nice, we'll call it, combination of paints with my activator, which I could include below in my comment section below on what I use and how the lacing stays nice and crisp. And as we go in for my tilts here, I wanted to touch on a really quick point I made earlier on in the video, is that when I made a comment about how we don't want to lose too much black oxide off the tilt, when I had too much paint, I became concerned right about here, or 15 seconds back, that I was low on black paint for the stretching portion of my tilts. So my tilts went really slow. This is probably 2 times actual speed, so I was a little bit light this time on black paint, so I didn't dump too much, which is a lesson learned for next time. If there's too much, that may be a good thing. Maybe keep your colors more towards the center and then stretch them out that way versus leaving out or having less paint in the end and having no way to stretch it at all. And going into this corner with my color, I really liked how well this lacing was holding together with its color and its shape. So I wanted to pull it back a little bit, but not at a very drastic degree of angle, because I didn't want to tilt it or stretch those cells or lacing too much. And also due to the fact I was a bit low on the black paint, I had a hard time stretching all 4 corners, which did work out in the end. But again, keeping in mind that we want enough paint to stretch all 4 corners in the end as a learning experience, we'll call it. So I'm happy with how this pour turned out, but again, keeping in mind how much paint you do need per square inch of your pour is incredibly important. Now at this point, I know I didn't have quite enough paint to stretch to my 4th corner, so I'm more concerned with making sure my paint is centered versus tilted to the 4th corner. So again, I'm wanting to make sure my composition is in the middle of the pour versus concerning myself with the 4th corner spilling over. Now, if you have come this far in this video, thanks again for being here. I appreciate it. If you haven't yet, please feel free to subscribe to my channel for that support. I love you guys, are awesome. Thanks so much for your support in these past almost 2 years in January, so I appreciate you. Here's a brief overhead look of the pour itself, and I find that the lacing, like I talked about, is really quite crisp, gives great lines. Some of the purple bled into the lacing, which looks really pretty, giving a bit of a pink tinge to that overall lacing effect. And again, the Color Shift by Folk Art is a really cool acrylic. I do recommend all day long. So anyway, what are you guys' thoughts? Let me know below in the comments section underneath. And again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you again in the next one.